And we're live. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Lunch and Learn, a weekly live show where we ask an expert your questions on a legal topic. My name is Cindy. I am a staff attorney here at Maryland Legal Aid. And today we have Mariel with me. Mariel, do you want to introduce yourself?
Of course. Hi, everyone. My name is Mariel Shutinya. I'm a staff attorney in community lawyering as well as Cindy. Really excited to be here. It's my first time on Lunch and Learn. I always watch, but
Yeah.
also expungements are my absolute favorite topic. So I'm really
Oh,
excited
is
to
it?
talk about this.
We love expungements here at CLI. Like we really do. We do a lot of them. Um, I was going to ask if you want to say anything interesting about yourself. Do you want to tell the audience that you're my best friend?
Yeah, Cindy and I are best friends.
Yeah,
I can,
we're best friends.
yeah, hang out all the time.
Yep,
Pre-COVID. Now it's all
pre-COVID.
virtual, but
Yeah,
hopefully once again soon.
yeah. I think I haven't seen you in like in person in 6 months, maybe more. Yeah,
Yeah, it's
we all
weird.
need to. Yep, we all need to wear masks, get vaccinated, so we can see people in person. So sorry everyone. So the format this week and for the next couple of weeks is going to be a little bit different. It's going to be a little bit shorter. We'll try to keep it within 15 minutes. So if you do have questions, send them in. Today's topic is expungement. So send in your expungement questions if you have them. With that said, just real quick, if you do want to talk to us one-on-one, not necessarily Mariel or me personally, but if you want to talk to one of our attorneys, just give us a call. Our email here is lawyer@mdlab.org. That's LAWYER at mdlab.org. Our phone number here is 443-451-2805. And of course, just because you listen to us every week, it does not mean that we are your attorney. Neither Mariel and myself are your attorney. So if you do want to ask legal, I'm sorry, if you do want to talk to a lawyer one-on-one, give us a call or email us. We're very friendly. So with that said, and again, it's a shorter video today, so none of my usually spiel about everything else. Let's just dive into expungements. Um, yeah, do we want to define expungement? What is it?
Of course. So expungements, we're talking about criminal record expungement. So before I start talking about it, first off, we're only talking about Maryland cases. So every state has different laws around criminal record expungement. So what we're talking about today is Maryland
Yep.
specific. So basically in Maryland, anytime you step foot in a courtroom, if you're arrested or you have any criminal case or even civil case that goes to court, there's a record of it and it's public record. So, obviously we got your fingerprints done for a background check. Anytime you had a criminal case or arrest, it would pop up on there. But also we have something called Maryland Judiciary Case Search, just kind of like a Google search for case records. So you could type in anyone's name and it'll pop up with their criminal record or civil cases as well, but we're only talking about criminal record. Unfortunately, you can't have your civil cases removed. Um,
Yep.
so if you're arrested or charged with anything, even like a speeding ticket, it'll pop up there and it has your name, your address, your height, your weight, the
Your date of
charges,
birth. Yep.
date of birth. I had a speeding ticket a couple years ago and like all of my information is up there and it's uncomfortable. And then if you have a criminal record, that, hopefully speeding tickets aren't holding you up too much in life. But if you have a criminal record, that can impact a lot of things.
Yeah.
So
Well,
you have,
don't
sorry,
search us on Case Search.
you don't look at
Please don't search us. But if you do, I think we actually pop up a lot because every time we enter appearance, we show up on the Case Search too. So yeah, you don't even have to pay for it. It's a free website. If you Google or Yahoo search, I don't know what the people use nowadays, but if you just type in Maryland Judiciary Case Search or Maryland Case Search, I think
yeah.
that's the first website that pops up, and you can search yourself, search your friends. And see what you have on record. So I want to talk just real quick about the impacts that we have when it comes to someone with a record. Like it doesn't have to be necessarily a court record, right? It could be a police record as well. So I'm gonna go ahead and I want to talk about like some of the stupid impact and some of the common impact. And and then I'll ask you if you have any stories. So I have a like personal story. Personal as in like it relates to my family. So my first of all, I'm an immigrant. For those who have watched this show all these times and not know, I'm an immigrant. We immigrated here from China, and I think 10 years ago, my mom got into a car accident. At like she wasn't driving; she was literally parked, and some lady hits her car. So she goes and chases after this lady, trying to get her information, and the lady wouldn't stop. So my mom calls the police saying, hey, she hit my car, because my mom didn't know what else to do. So the police come, manages to catch the person who hit my mom, and that lady told the police that my mom hit her, which is not true, because obviously it didn't happen, because she was in a car. But anyway, long story short, a charge was filed against my mother, and she goes to court. Luckily, this happened at a gas station, so there was a recording. So obviously her case gets thrown out, right? But just because my mom was charged and there was a police report, everything was on her record. So she goes to court, everything's on her record, and the public defender actually asked for everything to be expunged, which is fine. And what my mom was taught, you don't have to tell people about this because it's expunged, you should be off of your record, etc., etc. The stupid thing came 5 years later when we applied for citizenship. And obviously you had to have a citizenship interview. So when my mom went for the interview, it's in Maryland, but citizenship is federal. So one of the questions they asked if she has ever been arrested or charged with a crime, and she said no, because one, this was a couple of years back, and two, she was told by a lawyer that she didn't have to tell the immigration people. And oh my gosh, oh my gosh, the drama. The agent who interviewed her immediately said she was lying, said that they could arrest her right there for lying to a federal agent, et cetera, et cetera. So there was so much drama. It ended up being okay, but it was a very scary moment. And to me, I thought that was something that's kind of stupid. In terms of the way the law works for expungement. So in Maryland, as Meryl said earlier, once you get something expunged, it gets removed from your record. You don't see it on case search. You don't see it on CJIS, which is Maryland criminal record repository. But at a federal level, people can still see it. So that's something for people to keep in mind, that, it could still impact you, but at least in Maryland, people wouldn't be able to see that. So that's a stupid impact. Mary, do you have a stupid impact story, or?
I have lots of them because we do so much expungement.
We do.
But I think you point out something really important that everyone should remember with criminal record expungement is that some people think they don't have a record because they were found not guilty, or it was null pros, or they declined to prosecute, and that's not the case. So unfortunately, any disposition, which we'll talk about, but any outcome in the case, even if you weren't found guilty, is up there unless you ask for it to be removed by the court. So I hear that all the time from people being like, well, I don't have a record. And, we just do a little check just to find out. And they're like, oh, well, that was tossed out 30 years ago. It's still there unless you ask the court to take it off.
Yeah. And it doesn't matter how long ago that was. Unless you ask the court to take it off, it'll be there.
Exactly, which is very frustrating. And, we have an innocent until proven guilty kind of system, but then it's just up there. And so there's these stupid impacts and the common impacts. And the problem is that it's just public record that anyone can look at. So, we're talking about the common impacts that are really hurting people. So it's going to be like applying for housing or applying for jobs or school or, like a custody case or really anything.
Yeah.
But then in kind of a stupid way, it could just be a personal matter, because I could just look up Cindy right now and see what she's been up to. Unfortunately, someone like me, I have a very uncommon name. If you look up Mariel Shutinia, any record on there is going to be me.
Yep.
There's no other Mariel Shutinia out there.
Yep.
So it's just important. I like to say that even if it's not affecting you right now, if it's eligible for expungement and you can have it expunged, do it. Because I didn't like having my address and my height and weight and all of my information up online because I got in a speeding ticket 3 years ago. And I'll talk about that. Speeding tickets don't need to be expunged. They're removed automatically after a couple of years. But it's just that it's uncomfortable. It's your personal information that's just out there when it doesn't feel like it needs to be.
Yeah, and I think one common thing that I also hear is it impacts people's license, not driver's license, but like nursing license, teaching license, and you don't have to be convicted. I think one of the most common ones I see is someone getting charged, not convicted, just charged with a second-degree assault, and then suddenly they lose their nursing license, and it's, I mean, and of course the case would, at some point get thrown out of court, and that's fine, and they don't get their license back because the charge is still on there. So I think that's one of the most common ones that we ask the court to expunge. um, so let's now go to what can come off of the record. So I'm saying so a lot, I'm sorry. Therefore, we can be therefore two, we can be lawyerly today.
Joe.
But no, if people have questions, please go ahead and ask them. It is a shortened video today. But if you do have like questions like, I have this and this and this on my record, is it eligible? Don't ask that. Just give us a call, like, or email us, and we'll try to get you sorted out. If you qualify for our service, everything we do is for free. We'll do the entire expungement for you. But let's talk just real briefly about what's eligible for expunge. So first of all, things that are dismissed or now processed or acquitted, basically, what people say, like, oh, my case was thrown out of court. And once that happens, you are not convicted, so you're not guilty of this. Then you are entitled to get your record expunged immediately. You do not have to wait for 3 years. I don't know which lawyer out there is saying 3 years. You do not have to wait. You can get it done immediately. But there is a waiver issue. Mario, do you want to talk about the waiver?
Of course. So yeah, so I've seen this before where someone, is in criminal court, gets the case dismissed, and you could literally just fill out your expunging paperwork and take it straight down to the clerk and file it then. But the problem is that you have to sign a general waiver and release. And basically you're saying you're not going to sue anyone involved with it, but basically the police, the state's attorney, anyone, you're not going to bring a lawsuit about this case. And at first I thought that seemed a little shady, because anytime you're waiving your right to sue, it raises a red flag of why are you having to do this? But the thing is, in Maryland, there's a 3-year statute of limitations to bring this type of case. You only have 3 years to bring a case about this. And what the court doesn't want to do, and which makes a lot of sense, is they don't want to expunge a record and then have everything deleted. They have no record of it anymore. And then you bring a lawsuit against them and they can't defend themselves because the record is inaccessible. So in order to have something expunged before you've hit the 3-year period, and when we talk about things like dismissals, null process, it's 3 years from the date you got the disposition or the final outcome. So you have to sign this general waiver and release, just saying that I'm not going to sue, and that way they can expunge it early. So, most people are totally fine with signing that. If you're not, obviously, like, call us and we can talk about it. But the majority of people are. You just kind of want to be done with it, and that's totally fine. But in those cases, you do sign a general waiver and release, but then you can file immediately.
Yep, exactly. And then another common one that we get that is eligible for expungement is the PBJs, probation before judgment. So for those who do have this disposition, you'll know it's, you're be placed on probation for a little bit. And if you do well, then you don't get the conviction. But if you don't do well, you'll end up as a conviction. So if you don't end up having a conviction because you did well on your probation, sometimes it's as short as 24 hours. I seen someone with a 24-hour probation before, and that's pretty great. And it could be as long as a couple of years. So if you got one of these dispositions, it is also eligible for expungement as long as it didn't turn into a conviction later on. So for these, here's where the rule gets a little not straightforward. And people get this wrong all the time. For PBJs, you have to wait at least 3 years. So if your probation is shorter than 3 years, you have to wait for 3 years. But if your probation is longer than 3 years, you have to wait until your probation is done. And it kind of makes sense if you think about it, because you can't expunge a case while you're still on probation for it. And though honestly, I haven't seen a PBJ case that lasts more than 3 years. I think the longest I've seen is maybe a year on probation.
I've seen 5.
Have you seen 5? Oh, okay.
Well,
Then you
most
gotta
of
wait
the
for
time.
me.
The
Yeah.
majority of time, they're going to be less than 3 years. So as long as you get 3 years from that disposition date to the date the court entered it, it should be eligible. The big issue there, though, is that you can't have a conviction in that time period. So it's really important to remember, and I'm sure we'll talk about that more. So when it comes to probation for judgments, you can't have a subsequent conviction. So in that 3-year period, you can't be convicted of another crime. One of the other big things I should have mentioned when we're talking about anything you want to expunge, does not matter what the disposition is, you can't have an open pending case for another matter, which is upsetting and confusing because it doesn't really matter anymore. Like it won't affect it. But in Maryland, the law says that if you have an open pending criminal case, so no disposition's been entered, you can't have anything expunged. Even if it's an old case from 20 years ago, you have to wait for your new case to be closed out or disposed of. So you need that something finally entered in there before you can file for your other things.
Yep, absolutely. And that reminds me of another thing that you do need to watch out for when you think about, like, is this eligible for expungement? If you're thinking that, you should probably talk to us. Don't go through life without your lawyer. But so the thing that I'm thinking about is called the unit rule, and it causes so much grief, and it's hard for so if you're not involved with the criminal proceedings, or if you're not a lawyer, it's a little bit hard to wrap your mind around. So the unit rule is when one count of a case is eligible for expungement, but another count or even another case that was charged at the same time because it's part of the same series of events. So even though the one count you're looking at is either dismissed or null process or acquitted, is otherwise eligible, but you have another case or another count that's not eligible for expungement, and it all happened within the same event, then the entire thing stays on your record. And that is the unit rule. That's a specific rule that's in the law that unfortunately the legislature decided no, we want the entire unit to stay on your record if that happens. So this is really confusing, especially when someone I think I don't know if you have a better example, Meryl, but the one that I see most commonly is when someone gets arrested for DUI, and so they get charged with a DUI. Which even if you get a PBJ, a DUI is not eligible for expungement. So let's say they get
the only PBJ that's not eligible for expungement is DUI, so everyone knows.
Yep. And if you don't remember that, that's fine. Come talk to us. and really, if there's anything confusing about this, you should really come talk to us. But a lot of times I see clients with DUIs, either a conviction or a PBJ. Let's say they got a conviction, but within the same incident, so they get pulled over, and if you read the police report, I bet you it's gonna say, officer smells marijuana smoke, and from whatever experience this officer had, he knew was marijuana smoke. The person in the vehicle presents with I don't know, red glossy eyes, answers with like a unclear speech or something, or what have you. So it's very standard. So you get your DUI conviction, and then you get charged with possession. And possession of marijuana is eligible for expungement now, but you also have the DUI on the record, and it's the same case, unfortunately. That means everything stays on your record, even though the marijuana possession is eligible for expungement. So that is the unit rule. And it can be very frustrating because a lot of times we see that and it's a function of our criminal justice system, I think, and we won't talk too much about that, but a lot of times you get charged with a bunch of stuff and you plead to the least serious one, thinking that, oh, okay, only this is going to show up on my record. That is not true. your entire case will show up on your record, even if you plead to the least one, if it's not eligible for expungement. So I think I also see a lot of resisting arrest. And it doesn't have to be a big deal if you're convicted of resisting arrest, but unfortunately we see convictions of that all the time, and it locks the entire case in. So that's a really common one that we see. Do we want to talk about some of the convictions that might be eligible for expungement?
Yeah, sure. So it used to be that most or absolutely no convictions were ever eligible for expungement. So there's a couple of different things. So normally we talk about null process, and it doesn't matter what you were charged with, right? Like it could be anything if the disposition is positive. So a null pros or even a PVJ, which isn't really positive, but it's not as severe as a guilty, it doesn't matter what your charge was. But when it comes to convictions, it matters what the charge was. So there's things called nuisance crimes, which are really, really minor things like panhandling, sleeping in a park, MTA citations, like you were eating on the light rail or something. Those are eligible for expungement, and there's a whole long list of them. So definitely call us if you think you have one. And those can come off your record after 3 years. There's no subsequent conviction rule. They're just going to be eligible. Possession of marijuana less than 10 grams is no longer a crime in Maryland. It results in a civil citation. So if you have a guilty for possession of marijuana less than 10 grams, that can be filed for expungement right away. Possession of marijuana more than 10 grams, but less than a distribution amount. So really any other personal amount, personal use amount is eligible for expungement 4 years after you have 4 years. It's a hard 4 years to wait on that, but again, no subsequent conviction rule. So as long as you waited your 4 years, that's eligible for expungement. And then everything else. And so everything else. So misdemeanor, in 2017, the legislature passed something called the Justice Reinvestment Act. And this listed out about 100 misdemeanors and now 3 felonies that are eligible for expungement after an extensive waiting period. So for our misdemeanors, it has to be one of the ones listed. It has to be explicitly stated in there that it's eligible for expungement. So things we'll see a lot of with the misdemeanors are, simple possession, non-marijuana, prostitution, theft, trespassing, things like that, kind of these misdemeanors. And if it's not listed in there, it's not eligible though. So something like driving on a suspended license isn't eligible for expungement because it's not listed as one of the eligible charges, unfortunately. So for most of those misdemeanors that are listed out, it's a 10-year waiting period. And when I talked about it, their waiting period started the disposition date. For convictions, it starts at the end of your sentence. So if you were convicted and you were given a 1-year sentence, you have to wait basically 11 years. So 10 years from your disposition or your sentence date, end of sentence. Yep. And in those cases, you can have a subsequent conviction in that 10-year period, unless the subsequent conviction eventually becomes eligible for expungement too, and then it's this waterfall effect.
Yep.
The other
sorry, I was just going to interject. Definitely, if it's a conviction, if you have a conviction, come talk to us. If you have a conviction, come talk to us. You do not have to figure this out. You can if you really want to, and you don't like us. That's okay. But just come talk to us, because it literally takes us maybe 30 seconds to make the determination and help, and then it takes a little bit longer for us to help you file, but it doesn't take us that much time, and it's it's a peace of mind for you to know if it's actually eligible for expungement. And if not, we'll tell you why not. So don't sit and wait, just come talk to us. Sorry to interrupt.
No, definitely. And I always say that, just please contact us, because we do a lot of expungements. We know all the ones that are eligible basically off the top of our head, or we have a very convenient list right in front of us. You don't need to go searching for it. We can give you that peace of mind at least. The other misdemeanor that is very common that we see and is eligible for expungement is second-degree assault. This one has a 15-year waiting period though. So it's 15 years from the end of the sentence date, where your other misdemeanors are that 10-year waiting period. And again, no subsequent conviction in there. You can't have any open pending cases, and the unit rule applies as well, unfortunately. So if one of your convictions, you have a couple charges in that unit, one conviction, you're convicted on one that's eligible, but one of your other convictions is not eligible, unfortunately, the whole thing's stuck there. And then there's the 3 felonies that they added in 2018 that are eligible for expungement after 15 years of waiting with no subsequent convictions. And those are going to be felony theft, so theft over a certain amount, possession with intent to distribute. Any drug, it doesn't matter what it was, but it's only possession with intent, not actual distribution. So that's important to remember. And then burglary 1, 2, and 3. They forgot to add burglary 4 in there. When you go in degrees, 1 is the most severe and 4 is the least severe. So it doesn't really make a lot of sense why burglary 1 could come off, but burglary 4 can't. So if you have that issue, definitely call us because we can help you on that one. But again, any other felony is not eligible for expungement right now, even after the 15 years, because it has to be explicitly listed out in the statute.
Yeah, and we're talking about convictions here. So if you do have convictions, 1, you should give us a call, and 2, only certain convictions can come off. So we're running low on time, but what's the worst thing that you have gotten expunged? That you have helped a client get expunged? I'm sorry. I mean, if you want to talk about your criminal history personally, that's fine too, but...
Fortunately, I don't have any personal expungement experience. That speeding ticket kind of just fell off after 3 years, thankfully. The worst, I mean, it depends on kind of what we're talking about. The silliest I've seen is I helped a client get a spitting charge expunged.
I didn't know that was even charged as a separate thing.
Yeah, it was. It was kind of old. It was an older charge, but that one blew my mind a little bit. And hopefully that wasn't holding someone's life up. But again, if you're applying for jobs and someone has absolutely no record and you have a spitting charge, it maybe could outweigh it. I don't know. Yeah. But on convictions, I mean, we've gotten a lot of second degree assaults taken off, possession with intent. And the point of that law was that, after 10, 15 years, if you have no other convictions, does it really make sense to keep holding people back and affecting their lives so drastically when they've made really big changes? I mean, 15 years ago, not to age myself, but I was, starting college. My brain wasn't even fully formed yet. So I think it's just important that's kind of why that law exists. I wish it was a shorter time period. It's not. Unfortunately, we can't work around those. The law is what it is right now, but it's really important, if you have any convictions, really anything, just to call us because we can easily look at your record and give you a good idea of what can be done or if we can help you with it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the worst I've gotten someone's and this is with the permission of the client, I get to share the story, and I won't mention her name. But she had, this is when a prosecutor kind of went a little gung-ho about the charges. And full disclosure, I used to be one, though not anymore. And I understand the mentality, but I don't agree with what this prosecutor did. But so this prosecutor's charged this lady with first-degree murder. Not even. And a slew of other things that she wasn't actually responsible for. There's a whole backstory about why she wasn't criminal liable. But either way, she was acquitted of the whole thing. And that was, I believe, 15 years ago. So for 15 years, she had murder on her record, and she didn't know that was holding her back, because when people do when employers especially do a background check, they don't understand what acquittal means. They don't understand what we call null pros or noli prosequi. I don't speak Latin.
Noli prosecci, my 7 years of Latin.
Noli prosecci. Are you sure?
No,
that
I'm
sounds
not.
like a drink. Right.
It's a dead language, so you can pronounce it any way you want.
But the point is, it means the prosecutor decided to not go forward with the case for whatever reason. And I think a lot of employers don't understand that that's not a conviction. It means whoever is, on the other end of the case is innocent of this charge. So we went ahead and got that expunged, obviously. And she was walking around for a while. I told her to stop doing it. For a while, she walked around her neighborhood and she was telling people that I could get a murder charges expunged, which is technically true. But then, I started to get clients who were like, well, this is not even as bad as a murder. Why doesn't it come off my record? And I'd explain to them, well, she didn't get a conviction. So I think that's most serious thing that I have ever gotten expunged off someone's record.
I say, I've had a few murder charges expunged. I saw a lot. I had this one client. It was him and 47 co-defendants on a murder charge. 47, and he was acquitted of everything like immediately because they just picked up everybody and charged them all. And it was absolutely ridiculous. But that was on his record for like a decade. Never convicted. But that makes sense if an employer or a housing or school or just anyone looks it up and doesn't really understand and sees that. That might be a red flag. So if you can have it removed, it makes sense to try. And the important thing with expungements, I always like to say, is the worst thing that can happen is the court will say no. That's it. They're not going to reopen the case. You're not going to get in trouble. It doesn't, it's not even a criminal matter anymore. Expungements are kind of like the civil side of criminal law. And so the worst thing they can do is say no. They're almost always dismissed without prejudice. You can always try to refile it if you file too soon, anything like that. So if you think, and we'll do it too, if I think there's a good argument for why it may be eligible, we'll file it, because the worst thing that's going to happen is we go to a hearing and it gets denied. Nothing else is going to happen. It'll stay exactly the way it was.
Yep, exactly. That was way longer than 15 minutes. I thought we could do this in 15 minutes.
Why do you think that, Cindy? It's you and me.
I don't know. I know we can talk about expungements forever, and this is a part 1 of 4-part series. So I thought, we can maybe finish talking about expungement in like 4 sessions, but obviously it might be a little bit longer. But with that said, so we did get a couple of questions. However, they're mostly, can I get this expunged? Please don't give us specific information. Just give us a call or email us. We will talk to you one-on-one if you're eligible for our service, and it's free. I think another one we got was my child has this, can I get expunged? Please have your child contact us themselves, because if they're an adult, obviously, we can only help them when we talk to them. We cannot do it through you. Only they can ask for it too.
And if your child is a juvenile, those records are not really eligible for expungement while they're juvenile. If it was taken from an adult court down to juvenile court, we can have that record removed of the adult court. But the actual juvenile records can't be. So if your child's underage or is tried in juvenile court, that's not really something. I mean, if your child can call us, talk with us about it, but it's a little different too.
Yep, definitely. I think the takeaway, I try to do takeaway at the end. Sometimes I forget. So the takeaway of this episode is expungement is not very straightforward. Come talk to us. We can help you for free. For free. It just costs you a little bit of time to talk to us. And again, I think we're very friendly people, right? Like we
try.
I think so. We try. So with that said, next week's topic, Mariel's going to come back and talk to us again, because we can talk about expungements forever. Next week's topic is also going to be on expungement, but it's going to be on PBJs and good cause hearings. We mentioned a little bit about PBJs and the issues that it has, and that you can potentially maybe get expunged before the 3 years up, but that needs a hearing all on its own. So next week we'll be talking about that, and it's called a good cause hearing. But if you do have any questions about expungements besides can I get this expunged, please contact us, and you can email or direct message. We do check our accounts regularly, so don't worry about it. Just let us know if you have a question. And of course, if you do find this video helpful, make sure that you're sharing. And I want to say subscribe. That's not the correct term. Hit like on our Facebook page. And with that said, I'll see you next week.